Hey, today I want to talk about being misunderstood. Um, I often in my life, because of my difficulty communicating with others and letting others know um, the proper way of how I'm feeling about a situation, or just poor communication from lack of knowing how to interact with others as a kid and even as an adult. I I've dealt with this. Sometimes it's difficult to translate to others how who you are and how you feel about things and things like of that nature. Being misunderstood sucks because people don't get a chance to know what your true intentions are, or your heart, where your heart is at in depth, and especially when they don't know you, right? So I'll share a story. When I was a kid, um, I think it was the fifth grade, um, and it was lunchtime. Okay, at that time, in the fifth grade, at that time, uh, in my age at that time, I was struggling a lot with like family issues, and it was difficult for me to focus in school. I guess ADD, just traumatic experiences that a kid at that age has difficulty expressing or dealing with. When you're a kid and you deal with certain family issues, you're things that impact you, and you as a kid don't know how to work that out. You don't even know what's wrong with you. You just react on an emotional level, on a psychological level. So I was dealing with a lot of things, rejection and confusion of wondering why, you know, things were the way they were. Where there's lack of parenting, abandonment, just multiple things that affect kids, right? So, on that note, uh, I, I've never, I've never had a malicious heart uh, from the very start that I can remember as a child. I never had a malicious heart. As a matter of fact, my first fight when I was like 5 or 6 years old that I can remember, which my dad made me confront that kid after 3 or 4 times of me going to him, and it was a kid park incident. uh, I was afraid of hurting the kid. I never wanted to hurt anybody. I remember me feeling that way. So like I never really had a malicious heart. I learned my heart got a little harder later on in life as I experienced other things, uh, but mostly out of anger and frustration, which is not great either. But so that you can understand the state of mind that I was in, I was just frustrated in that at that moment in time in my life as a child. I didn't understand how to deal with my emotions, and so it's lunchtime, fifth grade. I had already several weeks in a row. I had the tendency of just cutting in line. If you understand how public school works, in the at lunchtime, you make the line, kind of like the prisoners do in Big House, right? And I had a bad habit. I didn't do it in a malicious way. I was just acting out, and most of the time nobody would tell me. I would just cut in and nobody would say anything, so I just cut in and get my food and go sit down. I wouldn't bother anybody after that point. I wasn't a bully or anything like that. But one day a kid pulled my ticket. One day, just like every other day, I get to lunch and I cut in line. And someone taps me on the shoulder from behind. And I'm like, who the hell? And tapped me on the shoulder again. So I turned around, and it's this shorter, chubby kid. He tells me, hey, the back of the line is over there, you know. And I was like, all right. Turn around again, and he taps me again. He tells me, hey, you can't be skipping line. The back of the line is over there. He wouldn't leave me alone. Kept tapping me. Very calm and correct young man, you know. And eventually I get frustrated with him. I turn around, and in my retardedness, I tell him, what do you want to do about it, you know? And the moment that I put my hands up to push him, in a blink of an eye, everything blacks out. I see a couple of stars, and I black out for a second. I open my eyes again. He's still standing right in front of me, and I don't understand what happened. I'm in awe. I'm completely confused. I'm like, either he hit me or I don't know what happened. So he's looking at me. Some cute girl that I had a crush on in the corner is looking at me, and everybody's looking at me to see how I'm gonna react. But I'm confused. So I look around and I'm like, okay. I turn around and I stay in line, and I get my food and I sit down. Later on, a while after, I've always thought of that, about that kid. And a while after, I find out that the kid was like a black belt in some kind of martial art. He knew exactly where to hit me. Apparently, he caught me in a nerve in the jaw, and he was super quick with his hands. So quick that I blinked and missed it. And I found out because he was good friends with another kid that was also a really good kid, good student in school at that time, and I knew him because he lived on my block in the area where I lived at. And so that's how I found out. And that other kid knew me. He knew that I wasn't malicious, you know, but I dealt with things in the home, you know, and stuff. And if that was the first impression that kid had to know about me, the only thing that kid had to reference on who I was the asshole that would cut in line and you know, and wouldn't care about stuff. I didn't cut in line after that point anymore. But just goes to show you that sometimes you just need to get punched in the mouth. Sometimes you just need someone to align your OODA loop, you know. And that was a fundamental moment in my life as a kid where I started to consider how to deal with my emotions and how to project my emotions onto others. I realized that it was important for me to manage that so that I would not unfairly release my frustration upon others that don't deserve you know, any of that. So that was an interesting situation. Yeah, that kid, you know, he never had a chance to know who I really was, you know, as a person inside. And it's funny because I bumped into him, you know, much later and he still had that same perception of me, you know. So he basically just judged me upon first impressions, you know. And he didn't have to give me a second chance of any kind. You know, he didn't owe me anything, you know. So like, and I couldn't figure out a way of, or thought it was super important to try to go out of my way to reach out, you know. But it's always a thing that stuck with me, right? Yeah, about first impressions, right? People say first impressions matter a lot, but a lot of times you can't judge by first impressions. You know, for example, how I met my wife. I didn't know her at first, and judged her upon her appearance, and my knowledge of people at that time. You know, because our judgment is also dependent upon our experiences and wisdom collected from dealing with different types of people. And at that time, I had a limited understanding of a single mother in her position, you know, being young mom in her position. So initially, I judged her based upon my perception of her condition, you know. And that was basically, you know, young moms, you know, urban-ish, you know, that grew up in the hood, so to speak, you know, were known to be of a certain type, you know, of characteristics, you know. And those were the initial first impressions. But, you know, one day, the Father showed me otherwise, and I had the opportunity to. So she lived on her own with my stepson at that time, very young, and she became independent from her mother. I had the perception of her that she was a single mom and lived at home with her mom, and she was getting aid from, you know, from folks, from her parents or her mom or something like that. And she was not. She was very independent. She had her own job. She had just gotten her apartment. She had been living there for several months, or about a year or so, and she was very, very responsible, and she was really on a path of you know, of righteousness, you know. And I met her in church, and there was one time when I was it was after church, and me and some other young dudes, we escorted her. We went with her to her house. She needed a change and grab some stuff for her and her kid, and we had another event at church, and we were gonna go right back. And when we get there, she was like, "Oh, you guys want a glass of water or something?" You know, it's like, "Yeah, sure, you know, a soda or whatever." So when I get down, and you know, we get to her apartment, she's opening her apartment, and I was like, "Oh, where's your mom?" You know, she goes, "No, my mom doesn't live with me." And I was like, "Whoa, you live here by yourself with your kid?" It's like, "Yeah." So that automatically just had my wheels turning on a whole different level of what I thought, of who I thought she was, you know. And long story short, I might tell her other stories about that at some other time, but long story short, we ended up, you know, communicating a lot and exchanging a lot, and a lot of productive conversations based upon the Father, and spiritual conversations. And we realized that we matched up a lot in a lot of things, and her experiences, you know, that had led her to that point in time where she decided to leave all her old ways behind, and be responsible and take care of her kid. And long story short, we got together and got married. But just a little quick message there on how it's important to try our best to communicate our intentions. Sometimes we're misunderstood simply from lack of correct expressions. Lack of expressing ourselves on a more, in a way that people can understand a bit better. So, and of course, is to communicate with those you care about, because there's plenty of clowns out there that will try to infiltrate your circle, and they have no business. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about communicating, on the ground level where you operate, with those individuals that are in your circle that you care about, and potential, newcomers in your world that you care to communicate and express yourself so that you can be understood, and on the other side of that coin, it's also important for us to be acceptant to a degree of, and give people the chance to really show you where they're at and where their heart is really at. Whether it's first impressions or they just might have a hiccup, and fall off a bit. Sometimes folks just need a little bit of understanding and time, yeah. I think that's all I got to say about that.